Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can ripple out further than we could ever imagine. And sometimes that ripple can turn into a storm that changes everything. This is one of those stories. A story of a teenage boy, a beggar in the rain, a powerful man who thought he could break them both, and the twist of fate that no one saw coming. Stay with me until the end, because what begins as a quiet moment of compassion explodes into a battle of power, corruption, loyalty, and the fight for truth. And trust me, you won't forget this story. It all began on a cold, rainy evening. 16-year-old David Martinez was walking home from his after-school job at the diner. His sneakers, worn frayed, but still intact, splashed against the puddles. The storm was relentless. People hurried past, umbrellas shielding them from the downpour. But then, David saw him, a beggar, sitting against the wall near the bus stop. His clothes were soaked through, his hair matted, his body shaking violently in the cold. And what struck David most, his bare feet, blue with cold, cut, swollen. David froze. For a moment, he thought about walking past. He didn't have much himself. His family struggled every day. But then he remembered his mother's words. When you see someone suffering, don't just look away, because one day that someone could be you. David bent down. The beggar's eyes lifted, weak, confused. And David, without hesitation, untied his sneakers, slipped them off, and handed them over. Here, you need these more than I do. The beggar's lips trembled. Tears welled in his eyes. He whispered something David would never forget. Kindness is remembered far longer than cruelty. David walked home barefoot in the rain, cold, shivering, but inside warm. Life went back to normal, or so David thought. But 1 week later, everything changed. David came home from school to find a black car waiting outside his house. His mother panicked. "David, what did you do?" But the man at the door was smiling. "Are you David Martinez?" David nodded, nervous. The man handed him an envelope. Inside, plane tickets. "A private jet. You've been requested personally," the man said, "by someone who wishes to thank you." David's world spun. What was happening? On the jet, David met the man behind the mystery, Richard Ashcroft, a billionaire, CEO of a vast corporation, powerful, influential, ruthless. But when Ashcroft saw David, he smiled. "You gave shoes to a man in the rain last week. That man was my father." David froze. His mind reeled. The beggar? That frail man? That was Ashcroft's father? Ashcroft leaned closer. "My father walked away from everything. From me. From my empire. I thought he was gone forever. But then you showed him kindness. You reminded him that there's still good in this world." Ashcroft gripped David's shoulder. "And I repay debts. Always." From that day, David's life changed. First-class hotels, expensive suits, exclusive events. He was Ashcroft's guest of honor. But there was a darkness beneath Ashcroft's smile, one that David couldn't quite place. At first, it felt like a dream, but slowly the dream turned. Ashcroft wasn't just powerful. He was controlling, demanding, and when David hesitated or questioned, Ashcroft's mask slipped. "You don't refuse me, boy." His tone was cold, his eyes piercing. "You belong to me now." And it was then David realized the truth. Ashcroft didn't see him as a guest. He saw him as a pawn. One night, Ashcroft led David into the depths of his private estate, a sprawling mansion. Beneath it, concrete corridors, locked doors, and in one of those rooms, the prisoner, the same man David had given his shoes to, the beggar, Ashcroft's father, alive, but frail, weak, chained. David's heart stopped. Why is he here? Ashcroft's smile was ice. "Because weakness must be contained. My father chose to walk away from his empire, from me. He forfeited his right to freedom." David looked at the prisoner. Their eyes met, and the prisoner whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Kindness is remembered far longer than cruelty." The words he'd spoken in the rain, the words now etched into David's soul. And in that moment, David knew Ashcroft wasn't just powerful. He was dangerous, cruel, twisted. From then on, it became a war. Not of fists, not of guns, but of will. Ashcroft tried to break David. Isolation, deception, manipulation, even violence. But David refused to bow. He held on to the prisoner's words, onto his own humanity. Every torture, every threat only made him stronger. Ashcroft grew frustrated, erratic, desperate, and the more he tried to shatter David, the more the cracks began to show in Ashcroft himself. One night, the prisoner, Ashcroft's father, spoke again. "My son built an empire of glass, shiny on the outside, fragile on the inside. All it takes is one stone." And that stone was David. Piece by piece, David uncovered Ashcroft's secrets. The corruption, the bribes, the crimes hidden behind closed doors. And slowly, quietly, he began to turn Ashcroft's own empire against him. Ashcroft cornered David one final time. Bloody, bruised, but unbroken. "You think you can defeat me, boy?" Ashcroft roared. "I own this world. Men like me never fall." But David met his eyes, steady, calm, and whispered, "Kindness is remembered far longer than cruelty." And in that instant, the walls Ashcroft built came crashing down. This story teaches us something vital. Power built on cruelty will always collapse, but kindness, even the smallest act, can outlive empires. And no matter how dark the night becomes, resistance, hope, and compassion can ignite a fire that no one can put out. David thought it was over, that Ashcroft was finished, that he and the prisoner were finally free. But just as dawn broke, a voice crackled over the intercom. Low, cold, unfamiliar. "Mr. Martinez, you think you've won." But Ashcroft was only the beginning. David froze. The screen flickered on. And there, watching him, was someone even more powerful. Someone David had never seen before, but who knew everything about him. And the voice whispered, "Welcome to the real game." And so, David's journey is far from over, because in a world of power and corruption, one act of kindness may start a ripple, but sometimes that ripple awakens a storm. Will David survive what comes next? Will he stand against forces even greater than Ashcroft? Or will the fire of kindness be snuffed out? Subscribe to Crime Files Uncover for continuation and more thrilling stories.